Greetings, my name is Charles Greenlea. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm the founder of a social enterprise called Eco Paradigm. We provide a variety of agricultural services ranging from consultation to training and education, and we also provide labor and infrastructure support to farmers throughout the Southeast. So that looks like things like greenhouses, high tunnels, irrigation, fencing, land clearing and management, any number of things really just to help black farmers get up to speed, stay up to speed, stay productive, and ultimately reduce their labor requirements by implementing more effective systems. So I got into this work maybe like 13 years ago, just out of sheer interest of wanting to eat better. I was actually came in through nutrition, wanted to see my family eat better, and realized that agriculture was probably the best way to go about doing that once I realized everything they was doing with the food system. So worked with a number of organizations over the years, Habesha, Gangsters Growers, and then in 2019, after working with those programs and graduating so many different people and seeing that not everybody immediately has an opportunity to go steward land after completing the program, either because they don't have access to it or just don't have those channels yet open to them. So one thing I also noticed was that labor was a big need amongst farmers. So really trying to bridge that gap between the labor needs of farmers who already have beginning or established operations and those desires of those many times young people or young adults who are now entering into the agricultural movement but might not have a place to land yet. And so I created Eco Paradigm. We've been in operation since really like the pandemic, 2020, and have done work across the South at this point. So I pass it to my brother so we can jump in here.
Greetings, peace. My name is Christopher Lemons. Go by Chris, he, him, his pronouns are what I use. I'm the director for operations with Eco Paradigm. I started with the organization a little bit more than a year ago at this point. But some of the things that, really galvanize or bring us together are our ability to provide peace of mind to black farmers throughout the South. So many of our farms fail just from simply not having efficiencies or being able to have effective labor support. And so with Eco Paradigm, folks are not only getting a level of expertise, but it's a level of love that is brought with this organization and the work that we do. Everybody that's part of the collective is at some level a farmer or a grower themselves. And then we have people that have a myriad of skills, like craftsmen, woodworking. Of course, we do education and programming as well. But for me, it's just like, it's kind of like Dungeon Family. For us being from Atlanta, it's that way. Music is still needed, but we got to get out there and touch the land and the earth too. And so when you just see the amalgam of what we're doing and what we're working on, I'm really proud to be a part of this organization and what we do. For us, even this year in 2025, we've touched about every state in the South at some level, maybe outside of the Carolinas, I want to say. But everywhere else, we've gotten a chance to go visit Tennessee and Arkansas. But everywhere else, we have gotten a chance to get out there and do some work and be of influence. And so that's what we want to do. And then also when we talk about labor force development. So, there's a bridge between, I guess, the green gap and the blue gap. So a lot of what we do will be considered blue collar work, but for people that like to get outdoors and work in nature and work outside, this has been a great opportunity to pair people. And then even when you think about recidivism and paying people a fair wage, Eco Paradigm, is a shining example of giving people that need a second chance or an opportunity to get back on their feet a great way to do so and to be paid equitably.
I feel like with Eco Paradigm, we created a model, and not to say it's the end all be all, but really the model was grown out of the movement in Atlanta, So looking at organizations that were existing, again, like Habesha, like Gangsters Growers, who already had these programs. And just kind of identifying the opportunity, the need, you know what I mean? So if Atlanta is an ecosystem, right, what function do each organism play or organization play? And then what role or niche can eco paradigm now fill, right? So again, I was already working with these organizations, providing, program facilitation. And so, when you go through that process with people, particularly young people, for me, you build those relationships, you build those bonds. And for them, the way I see them gravitate toward the work and really want to do this work, for me, it creates a sense of duty to provide and create those opportunities for them, especially knowing that, agricultural work or environmental work, we already on the low end of the scale in terms of numbers, in terms of opportunities for us, So be able to create that for young people like Izai, he came out of Gangster Growers. Work with Sweet Soul, He been calling me, hitting me like every week, all season, just like I'm trying to get back in the fold. So it's like, for me, it's like, okay, I'm gonna try to create those opportunities for you because I see that need, but it's definitely a challenge because, like I said, we just a social enterprise, right? So it's like, most of the admin, is handled between myself and Chris, We've been moving toward more of a worker-owned cooperative model, and so we've been sharing the rewards and workload accordingly. So we've been trying to get people to, come on board, doing more like the estimates and stuff like that for different projects. But ultimately what's needed is more people to see what we're doing. Not to say our model is the end all be all, but we know it works. Because I see how, like, everybody who on the team right now, they've been around for years. Chris actually the newest member. But even he and our relationship precedes eco paradigm, So, when the opportunity came to bring him on board, it was really the perfect fit, But all that to say again, like, enhance the training programs, right? Let's continue to develop skill sets within young people and young adults who want to do this work. And let's continue to create the opportunities through relationships, right? So even like what we're doing right now, the Kazi Mob, right? For me, it's never, in any job that we do, whether it's through the Alliance or, just somebody who reaches out to us independently, even if we do it as a one-off, the possibility for ongoing connectivity and relationship is always there, So we will always want to try to enter into the relationship with that in mind to see what, beyond us doing this one particular project or this one particular scope of work, but now how can our activities bring you into this greater fold of Black producers so that we got an actual system that we're developing, So, the training programs for sure. And then, just the resources and equipment, because human capital is one thing, manual labor is another thing, but having the proper equipment and resources is a whole nother thing. But I know that was a long answer, but it's like, I'm still trying to figure it out on a certain level too, because like I say, not just Zai, but I got people hit me all the time, but I also have to be mindful of the team I currently have and not spread ourselves too thin in terms of opportunities or overload myself with too much overhead, trying to manage too many people at one point in time. But the other part of that is, I say, like, when we come to different cities, different locations in particular, like those localized trainings, right? So let's not just do a project, but let's establish it as a workshop so that the local demographic can now gain these skill sets and can continue to do that work even after we leave, Because we know we can't do it all, and that's not even the goal for us right now. We not caught up in ego or some kind of like we trying to be this and that. We trying to build something for our people, So if we feel like we got something that's useful that other people can utilize and learn from, we want to share that,
Yeah, for me, just being from Atlanta and the work that we do, and like, we drive within the shadows of the giants and the ancestors that helped build Black Atlanta as people know it. Yes, it has its challenges, but I give you an example. One of the community gardens that we help manage, like, literally is like maybe a 2-minute walk to Dr. King's home, his birth home. And so when we look at that, or you driving down Auburn Avenue and you seeing Alonzo Herndon's legacy, still up, dilapidated, but still up. we have to do the same things that they did. You know, that's how that we built out some industry segments and competitive advantages for ourselves. You know, at some level, Black people that I guess consider themselves professional, you gotta make a choice to maybe divest from the system. So there's a lot of times where we can have a great paying job and blah, blah, blah. But it's like Nikki Giovanni said, you know, you can go and lie and be nice to them all day, and then you come home and treat your people like shit. And so for me, I think it's just an opportunity to be leaders and build something out for the next generation, for them to be able to have some stability, to be able to pass something on to our folks. When you think about it this way, none of us are going to inherit our parents' jobs. You know, if a parent created a business, you know, created a trust, those types of things, those are the things that can be passed down. And when we're looking at doing things where we're trying to build up folks that need it in our communities, it's important to, you know, work with Eco Paradigm and continue to do that work that we need to do to build it up. You know what I mean? Charles and I, we'll turn 40 this year. So when you think about it this way, in the same time we was in tall tees, you know, you're gonna be grayed up. You know what I mean? But hopefully when we look back on it, we'll have done some really great and transformative work that not only helped change the city where we're from, but actually change like the region and the area too. And then to kind of answer your question a little bit more, you asked a little bit more about what was needed between landless farmers and people that own land. I think for me, it's a level of having a conversation, and then also in our community is like, stop the hurt. What I mean when I say that is, you know what that felt like when somebody let you down, when somebody didn't keep their word, when somebody didn't do right by you. And so in the same golden rule, do unto others as you have them do unto you, you know, you have to kind of lead that way. And then with that all that to say is that, you know, the farmers and the people that are looking for access to land, it's a certain way that you have to be able to show up in that space and do the work and stay down with it. And then from there, for me, I think that the people that just own land, when you look at the amount of money that you're putting away or losing just paying taxes, you know, especially if you own it outright, or the risk that you're running by having it in heirs property, I think that there's a lot of opportunities to mitigate that by working with people that are looking to grow food. But not just food, you know, we can grow our own fabric, our own industrial products and things like that. So there's ways that I think people can tap into agriculture, especially when we look at it from a passive income perspective, especially when you're looking at things like agroforestry, even doing things like fiber. You know, you can rent some land to some Black farmers that may want to grow cotton, you know, or canaf. And then, you know, now we're making our own clothes, and now the hoodies, you know, 100% sourced from a Black farm, you know, spun by Black weavers, you know, and printed at a Black screen shop. You know, those are the things when we're talking about closing the loop or actually changing the system. That's what we have to start doing, is actually changing the system. Like, you can't keep holding on to the whip, you know, throw the shit away, you know, and let's try to build something better that makes us feel good. Because we know that at the end of the day, for us as Black people, American capitalism is predicated and built on our backs.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. Like,
I mean, no, you said it.
Human resource.
You said it, and I think you hit it for me, where like not only was it built on our backs, but like do something different. Like, we got to change that system now. You know what I mean? That's really our goal. Is like, okay, we look at not only capitalism, but you know, agriculture in America. You know what I mean? Being predicated on, well, capitalism being predicated on the agricultural practices in America, and that being predicated on off our backs, right? So it's like, what now does an equitable agricultural labor force look like, where people can actually earn livable wages, can actually take care of their families, have, you know, health benefits, all of those things? And again, not to say we crack the code, perfectly, but those are the things we were striving for, you know what I mean? To bring some dignity to it, to, have some equity in it to where, the landowner is valued just as much as the farm worker and vice versa, you know what I mean? And they can share in the rewards in a way that's fair, just, and equitable, you know what I mean? And also produce that land in a way that's sustainable or regenerative, you know what I mean? So it's like finding a way to balance all of those. That's what eco-paradigm is. It's that balance between the ecology, the economics, and the community, you know what I mean? So it's not an easy thing, because like, even for a lot of us, like, because of the system that we are forced to participate in on certain levels, right? It's this idea that, we can only pay farm laborers this much, or, you know what I mean? Or we expecting people to volunteer, or, you know what I mean? But it's like, no, we got to find a way to value the farm workers just as much as any other trade, any other profession, and make sure our folks taken care of, because these are the folks that's going to be feeding our communities.
And I also would lift up too, is that getting people into different points of agriculture, because everybody may not necessarily be, out in the field. So it's also teaching folks as we're going. So it's like, with some of the guys, you're responsible for doing the research and learning how to do an estimate. Those are things that now, boom, you got project management on your resume. You got logistics on your resume. And it's things like that we continue to build up those skill sets and activate folks in our community. And you never know where that branch is off to, so we're a descendant of a sleeping giant. And it's time for us to wake up. I would definitely lift that up for sure. Even just showing the guys some of the ways that you can transition, or things that we work on that you may not, boom, guess what? You just sketched out a design for a garden. Boom, you just put in the irrigation infrastructure for it. You're starting to work on being a landscape architect. You know what I mean? But now you actually not only have some academic background with it, but you actually have the practical skill and the implementation of it. It's things like that when you really think about building out a true workforce, that's the true value add that eco-paradigm is bringing. And it's much needed in our communities. And it's a great way to replicate this, especially with us working with National Black Food and Justice Alliance to build out this Kazi model. This is something to where, like, we can start sharing this out and helping people that really need it. You got folks that are on hundreds of acres in Texas. You got folks that are in the Northeast, that just need a helping hand or a shot in the arm to help get it over the line sometimes. And I think knowing that people have that peace of mind of support, I think it strengthens our community in words that I can't describe. So.
So Kazi is a key Swahili word which means work. And so for a number of us from Atlanta, it was maybe over a decade ago, probably about 2012, 2013. Again, just understanding the need for labor, not just labor, but skilled labor, specified labor, labor that can really support farmers. We had this idea. It was a number of us, myself, Habasha, Grow Where You Are, a number of folks, who were just involved in agriculture at the time in Atlanta. We started just moving around to each other's farms as a Kazi Mob. Brother Eugene with Grow Where You Are actually came up with the name Kazi. But the idea is like a susu on a level, you know what I'm saying? But it's a labor susu, so it's basically like, we pick a spot to start with, which in this case it was an elder, you know what I mean? So it was a little different in the sense that we didn't ask the elder to put any sweat equity in, we just wanted to first start off by blessing her land. It's actually Mama Helen DuBose out in Henry County. She was the first Black woman in the United States to get a degree in agriculture, if I'm not mistaken. She attended Tuskegee and FAMU. Had a blueberry farm. So we went down there, did some pruning, did some mulching, a few other things, and then from there just continued to move around to different organizations, farms who was a part of the mob. Like all good things, it kind of hit a point where it kind of fizzled out for a little bit, and then I would say maybe like 2-3 years ago. We brought it back. Chris was a part of that. Stephanie Simmons, Polyculture, Ashe Family Farms, Brother Malcolm, Ross Kofi, Car Diop, Think Green. Kari was a part of the original Kazi Mob as well. So a lot of the original people plus some new folks who had kind of came into the movement at the time. We did a little revamp of it. Same kind of situation, lasted for a couple of months and then kind of fizzled out. So it was honestly from that original Kazi Mob that we did like 2012, 2013 that I really saw the impact of collective skill work. And that was a great inspiration for Eco Paradigm. So that coupled with, seeing the power of collective work coupled with the need for skilled labor amongst Black farmers was like, and plus I was working with all these folks coming out of these training programs, looking for a next step. It just made sense for me to try to do this. And honestly, when I started it, I didn't know where it was gonna go. I was really thinking it was just gonna be something small scale. But like I say, we started right around the pandemic. And then, the demand for food and then essential workers also, which we are considered, was huge. So, created a lot of opportunity. But just going back to the Kazi Mob itself, it's you see it in most indigenous cultures, where, the farmers, they band together and move to each other's farms and crops and support each other with planting or harvesting or any number of large tasks, And, as the proverb says, many hands make light work, and, we witness it every day. Almost every time we go to a farm, and I'm not just, it's not ego, it's like the farmer or whoever we servicing is like, wow, it would have taken me so many days or so many weeks or so many months to get this done, but y'all knocked it out in a day or a couple of days or whatever. So it's like, I can say that without ego because I know it's not me, it's us, it's the power of we, you know what I mean? And so for me, that's what we want to continue to lean into. And so we now have this opportunity with the National Black Food and Justice Alliance that we're very thankful and excited about to build out this pilot program for its membership as well, based on some of the original things we were doing back in Atlanta in 2013, some of the things that we do within Eco Paradigm, but also largely influenced by the Alliance membership body so that we can, very uniquely and effectively, address their needs and concerns, around labor, around infrastructure, around collective production.
Yeah, I definitely would lift up one where we were down in Fairburn, and when we got done for the day, the farmer had packed up a bag of vegetables and fruit for everybody that was out there working and offered that to us. So it's things like that that really do go a long way and mean a lot, especially at the end of the day, you may not have time to go to the grocery store, but it's also things where, yes, we do need to be able to barter and trade and work together. That's what we always have done. And that's really that's truly how you make community. You can't do everything, Everybody has to do their part. And it's also where, folks, you may have a gift in certain skill sets and we need you to use those in our community to help band and build folks together. I could talk about this one all day. But for real, it's so many talented people in our community that don't even realize it. And that's maybe just because of some of the conditioning around our systems and subservience and obedience. But I would really love to just see, folks start to turn up in communities and helping one another again. And then also sharing those skills. Because to your point, something like sewing, that's a much needed skill. But then also we look at our full community, and if we was doing right, that Polo Morehouse Spelman campaign would have never happened. Yeah, that's one where we're not divesting from the system and kind of closing the loop showed back up in a way that was, people spend money on it, but it's very stale. Yeah.
Yeah, I say definitely interested in alternative economics and alternative economies. You know what I mean? So I say on a very like basic level, also related to the Kazi Mob, is like we practice the Kazi Mob amongst ourselves first. You know what I mean? So like Chris said, a number of us, most of us, either, you know, he got Gratitude Botanical Farm on the west side. I got G4 Farms in Crawfordville, Georgia. Chad got Early Bird Farm. So, you know, feed your people. It's a number of farms and gardens that we steward in and around the city or the state even. And so, you know, we'll take turns just pulling up on each other's farms and just sharing sweat equity. You know what I mean? So outside of our larger network and community that we service, you know, we try to practice that principle at home first, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But, you know, definitely like other folks, like people who feed us, whether it's produce or, you know, break bread with us, cook a meal. Like, you know, people really just show us love on a lot of levels, you know what I mean? In addition to compensation or, you know, maybe just, you know, recommend us, put our name in the hat for some funding, or, you know, it's so many different ways that you can practice reciprocity. And we're very much interested in that because I feel like money itself is limiting. It's always been limiting for us, you know what I mean? And so, you know, we can take that limitation and flip it to an opportunity to say, well, how else can we show reciprocity? How else can we show exchange? How else can we barter? How else can we trade? And like my brother says, you know, everybody got something to bring to the table. You know what I mean? I think that allows us to lean into that more and identify, well, hey, look, what are you skilled in? What are you proficient in? What value do you have to offer the community? And how can you bring that? And how can we make sure that your needs are also met so that we can all take care of each other, you know what I mean? I think if we continue to base things upon this fiat currency, you know what I mean? You know, it's not gonna go well for us, you know what I mean? But if we can utilize that fiat to acquire real assets and develop real systems of sustenance and production, then, you know, that's the best strategy for us, you know what I mean? But moving away from the dollar to creating our own economy based on real value, real assets, real resources, including human, and what, you know, the human capacity has to bring to the collective.
For me, with Kazi and my experience, it's pace and patience. So sometimes it come out and it's hot and it's like, boom, we're going every weekend. You're gonna burn yourself out very quickly out there doing physical labor like that very quick. And so just understanding that, like, relationally for us as Black people to our bodies, and this is something like I've had to work on, Charles is working on, is just taking that time to rest, let it marinate, go do something else, go have fun, don't grind yourself, you know what I mean? Even when we just talk about AI versus the human brain right now, it brings back, you know, just the thing about the story of John Henry and automation, you know, and man, yeah, he beat the machine, but he died at the end of it, you know, and he didn't get to go home to his wife. So there's things like that I think about ultimately when we build this out. You know, it's how can you help people? How can you keep your word, do what you say you're gonna do, give folks a quality result, and then be able to share back that story in a true and authentic way. You know, those are some of the things that I think about in the way that we show up and some of the results thereof. But yeah, definitely just from my experience with Kazi, it's just be patient with each other and have a pace. But then also I say have a plan too. So, okay, boom, we came and cleared 2 acres of land for you. You know, is it gonna be overgrown 2 months later? You know, what's the plan for maintenance after that so that you can get the necessary support or having those things like really thought all the way out before we get there? Because yeah, that's great. You feel good, the grass cut, woo, all right. But then 2 months later, the folks that came and helped, and you know, that's So let's plan and work together so that we don't burn one another out, but then also be gracious and patient with each other. You know, some folks, they are stewarding huge amounts of property and they can't get to everything. And it may get overgrown, it may get dilapidated. So that's going back to what you were asking earlier. How do we share, tap in, and start to work together? You know, at the end of the day, one thing my granddad and dad always said is, you know, it's a lot of these groups, they can't stand and they hate one another, but they gonna work together to make sure we don't get nothing. You know, and so in that same way that we know that we come from a culture and a history predicated from love, I think that we can be a little bit better about how we work together and get our job done. And like I say sometimes, let's get the job done and go on and go home. Because once we get to proselytizing and philosophizing with one another, you know, now folks is falling out because I ain't know you believe that, that kind of stuff. So it's those kinds of things too, is being a little bit more focused and dedicated to the work that we need to do while still healing and showing love. That's my part on it.
Yeah. So I think it's a both and in the sense of, you know, the scaling aspect, you know what I mean? That's the first thing coming to my mind is like, you know, I think definitely eco paradigm, we have the potential to scale just because, like I say, like we every day are getting calls, emails about work, about that we're trying to figure out how to address the needs of these farmers. And at the same time, like I say, I got young people who see what we're doing, who have maybe come through the program and maybe just had something else going on at the time or had to step away, who are trying to get back in the fold or get into the fold. But it's like, so like, you know, definitely like with the proper resources, you know, we could bring in additional administrative support to kind of help bridge that gap. But kind of like right now as is, what we have, it's like, we kind of like at a point of just maintaining what we got and, you know, the slow natural growth. But definitely with the proper infusion of resources and strategy, you know, I definitely feel like we had a capacity to scale what we're doing, you know, in and around the Atlanta area. And also, you know, definitely want to lean into the opportunity to do that trainer model, work with local communities, right? And, you know, if they want to create an eco paradigm chapter and they, you know, we open to that. And at the same time, like, even for the young folks who work with me, like, I'm encouraging them to start their own enterprises, right? So Trey graduated from Gangster Growers. He started Kwanzaa, worker on cooperative, doing same work as eco paradigm. And I love that, you know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, now you get the benefits of having that entity, you know, we can still work, like we can do the work under Kwanzaa if you want to, and I still get out there with you, right? Because for me, it's never, again, it's not about ego, it's not about eco paradigm, it's not about our name, brand. It's about literally that paradigm itself, you know what I mean? That's why we named it that, because it's literally a paradigm. It's not even a business. It's a paradigm that we're trying to create where our folks can, you know, have what they need in a way that's in balance with nature, you know what I mean? So, you know, going back to the point, like if it's under somebody else's organization and they just need the skill set, we want to come provide that, you know what I mean? I feel like we've been good at managing relationships and developing relationships in an authentic way with our community. And I think sometimes that's a challenge for people. So like, it's not even like the technical skills, but more so those soft skills, like how do I keep young people engaged, right? And one of the reasons the Kazi Mob can fizzle out is because the people who have that gumption, if you will, who have that just can-do spirit, who want to get out there and do it, they do end up burning themselves out, because it's like, okay, like when we was doing Kazi Mob, like we was volunteering, like, so it's like, okay, now I got to keep up my farm. Now I'm also going out every weekend and helping. You know, you can only do that for so long and not have some kind of, you know what I mean? If it, the other challenge with the Kazi Mob is, and not that it's an unsolvable one, but it's like everybody's needs aren't the same. Everybody's capacity not the same. So if he got a 5-acre farm and I got a 1-acre farm, but we both part of the Kazi Mob, how does the mob effectively address the need of that 5 acre the same way they would that 1 acre within that rotation, et cetera, right? So it's a number of things that still have to be figured out. Also, like you might have somebody who's a part of the Kazi Mob and their physical capacity is not the same as everybody else, right? So right. In terms of time banking or, you know, even just availability, right? How are people able to consistently carve out that time to participate in the mob? And I think that's one thing that has been both a strength and a challenge within eco paradigm that we can learn from, is that again, just having the number of people that we have who are a part of the team, who are interested in being a part of the team. I know, like even coming down here to Sapelo, right? Outside of the kind of day-to-day team that we have, like it was not hard at all to get some folks on the phone and say, hey, look, you want to come down to Sapelo, put some work in? Like folks ready for that. You know what I mean? It's also like now, how do I consistently create those opportunities for folks that we're trying to bring back into the fold? So, like I say, the economics got to be there on a certain kind of level, because you know, for me personally, like again, we're trying to create that model where folks can obtain a yield, you know what I mean, where you can have your needs met, you know what I mean, and not to say, again, that it's the end all be all, but if somebody come in and put in 8 hours or more for this cause, when I know we taking agricultural risks and working with certain, you know, inherent dangers and hazards, and you know what I mean, a lot of times it's not even our land, I want you to feel like your time was at least, you know what I mean, and in addition to what other value or gains you might get from the work. Because I think for all of us, it's bigger than the money. You know what I mean? If it was about the money in and of itself, that's not sustainable. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to have something beyond that motivates and drives you. And for us, it's that bigger picture, it's that collective energy. You know what I mean? That's the spirit of the Kazi Mob. You know what I mean? I
would say too, watching the younger people that work with us grow and mature and build out something for themselves. Ultimately, when you ask that question, it kind of made me think about like capitalism and patriarchy. It's like, do we want to be the next multinational conglomerate? Not really, you know what I mean? It would be something where, to just like Charles said, it's a each one teach one. And we want to build those skill sets out so everybody has them. So, you know, if it's somebody in Philadelphia that want to get that rocking and rolling, entrepreneurship is a great way for folks to be able to go about doing those things and being able to solve those problems in community. And then also for me, just, you know, we not city hating or anything like that. So it's something where everybody gets to be on and everybody gets a chance to eat and do those things. It's also, you know, some self-accountability within that, to make sure that we are doing right by folks and, you know, paying people accordingly. As things continue to develop, be able to offer benefits to staff, have like true staff and worker owners. So that's the thing for me. You know, we've partnered with other organizations to do workshops and teach people how to build these things out. You know, I don't know, the real signs of leadership for me always should be, one, when you get done, the group should think it was their idea. And then also as a leader, you want to make sure that your community is strengthened and it's not a king of the hill situation. Because we have so many caged birds in our community and folks, yeah, you making all the money, but you really don't have the power to empower other folks in your community. And at the moment, these folks want to pull the plug via your salary or whatever, you know what I mean? You gonna be right there, you know, fighting a good fight too. So that's one thing I would always lift up. And then when you think about it this way too, when that next generation is able to look back and say, hey, they thought enough of me to make sure we had an opportunity, you know, and didn't just cast us back over into the same systems that everybody has complained about, actually shifting it. So those are some things that I think about, but it's not anything we trying to take over the world or anything like that. But ultimately it is something where, I don't even know, it's just like a chain, or like how a nuclear reactor would go, you know, it's compounding, multiplicity very fast, you know, and that's what I would love to see more of just in general through Kazi, and in our community when we look back on everything. So we're here on Sapelo Island, down in McIntosh County, Georgia, in Hog Hummock. And what we're doing is helping clear out a fence area for a fire line, in areas like this that have been They've had their public services taken away, you know, via having fire departments and things like that. They have to resort back to indigenous natural land management practices. So of course, things like keeping the brush line clear from the house, being able to support as Mystic Roots builds out this store. You know, those are some of the things that we're out here doing. We're also strategizing on ways that we can help build out Kazi as a model and do a lot more to help Black farmers through National Black Food and Justice Alliance and partnership with Eco Paradigm. Go ahead, Charles. Give them some more on it.
Yeah, out here at Sapelo, you know, this is in part, you know, one of the pilot, you know, excursions for the Kazi Mob through the Alliance, and also a strategic planning session for Mr. Roots and Sapelo Island in general. So for me, this is not my first time on Sapelo, and even if it wasn't on Sapelo, I would say it's a homecoming of sorts, just in the sense of my relationship with Sister Tina, you know what I mean? So, you know, we go back to Atlanta like 2013 when she moved up from Florida. And, you know, 2013 to, you know, up to now, like that was like kind of where a wave kind of hit the city, and the movement really grew on a lot of levels, and definitely Sister Tina was a part of that. So, you know, this is something, you know, we've been talking about, planning for. Like, we've been able to witness each other's growth in the movement. And so, you know, now that we have Eco Paradigm as offering to the community, you know, definitely being able to bring that to Sapelo is a beautiful thing for us, you know what I mean? Like years ago, Tina's family had land on like Amelia Beach. Is Amelia Island? Like Amelia, yeah, like North Florida. And similar to this, like, so it's like, we didn't call it the Kazi Mob, but like she organized a group for a number of us from Atlanta to come down. Again, Kari was there, a number of farmers. We came, put some work on the land, and she took care of us, fed us. Like, her grandfather had like orange trees, grapefruit trees, all in the back, you know what I mean? So we was able to harvest fresh food, and that's one thing I love about my sister, is like she got a way of bringing folks together around food, around stewardship, or on the land, and creating these experiences, like from even just the way she prepares the meals, you know what I mean? Like, that we break bread together all the time, but it's like she prepared the food and serve it in such a way with such love. It's like, I don't know, just be able to be a part of that, and now be able to, you know, bring the team down here and be able to do some work in exchange. Like, you know, it reminded me very much of that time we was on her family land, you know what I mean? So I can see why she gravitates to Sapelo for obvious reasons. It's very reminiscent of that. This is definitely her speed. And I say, for me, my second time on the island, you know, it's a beautiful place, beautiful people, beautiful opportunity. And so we're not really sure long term what our impact here might have the potential to be, but, you know, we definitely want to do all that we can to preserve, protect this land for the original inhabitants, and see what opportunity it can create for our people overall.